The Fallout series is a wild ride when it comes to its themes and world. At times it can be wacky and nonsensical, and at others, extremely dark. This is a big part of why I love this series. The community loves to theorize on canon events that we see in-game, but occasionally, dark rumors make their way around the community. That being said, in comparison to other game franchises, Fallout's landscape of creepypastas is pretty small. I believe this is because the games themselves are dark enough, and with the fanbase being made up of mostly older teens and adults, they're not as entertained by creepy fake stories about how Nick Valentine came out of their TV screen and stole their sweet freaking katana collection or whatever. But I've been yapping for long enough. These are a few of the creepypastas of Fallout. June 17th, 2012. It's my 10th birthday, and I can't believe I have to put up with this crap. I hate my dad. Why would he make such a stupid decision? Why did he move into this stupid Vivos bunker when I was a baby? It's my birthday today, and instead of having fun and playing outside like a regular kid, I get to eat some crappy tasting cake in a cramped cafeteria. Almost everyone here is either a complete whack job or a jerk. The only real friend I have is Amanda. I can always count on her. It's times like this when I wouldn't be in this situation if it weren't for my mom dying. I think it was her death that drove my dad to make us move down here. My party's gonna start in about an hour, and hopefully, Dad at least managed to find something decent. June 25th, 2012. I think Dad's gone crazy. He gave me a fucking gun. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it down in this vault, but he doesn't seem to care. Mr. Almodovar, or the Overseer, as he likes to call himself, gave me a pretty cool digital watch. I wear it so much it's like it's welded to my wrist. I got nothing of value from anyone else. December 28th, 2012. It's past the day of the apocalypse, and nothing has happened. Big surprise. My dad keeps insisting that the end will soon be upon us, and that I should be thankful I'm in such a protected place. I try to convince him he's mad, but he won't pay me any mind. February 13th, 2014. I sneaked into my dad's office today. Him being the vault's only dentist. He has information on all of their residents. I figured I might be able to get some inside information on Christine by accessing his computer. I found nothing, and I was about to leave before I noticed his personal journals were left open. I read the most recent entry. The Nevacan transport pipe has a leak at point 323 XY3. A constant supply of Novocaine is being added to the air supply. Due to the security and health complications of repairing it, we have decided to leave it be. The dosage is said to be small enough to have no effect on residents. I couldn't understand most of what he was talking about. I heard his footsteps approaching, so I quickly ran back to my room. January 16th, 2015. I was incredibly bored one day, as I was most days, so I decided to snoop around my dad's office. He has a bobblehead with a huge medical syringe on his desk for some reason. I found his journals again and decided to read. The gap has slowly widened over the last year. The Novocaine doses are increasing. At this level, we expect minor brain damage as a side effect. I warned Elpos on the implications, but he's going mad with power. At this rate, the leak is doomed to increase in size. Permanent brain damage will be the result. I wouldn't be surprised if hallucinations start to set in after enough time has passed. I hope to God things resolve themselves. I didn't know what Novocaine was. God, do they teach anything to these vault kids nowadays? I swear it's a good thing these people are kept in a vault. They're dumber than a bag of bricks. Am I right? I didn't know what Novocaine was, but I sure knew what brain damage was. I immediately confronted my dad about what he wrote. He passed it off as a novel he was writing. It explains things better than it being true. I'll choose to believe it. For now. I heart Novocaine. Fucking Great. August 4th, 2017. I'm suffering from what I believe are terrible hallucinations. I keep seeing giant cockroaches and my watch has become oddly high-tech. I vaguely remembered my dad's journal talking about this, so I ran to his office and started reading. I'm sure of it. Everyone is going mad from the Novocaine. They're starting to fabricate things in their senses. The terrifying thing is that the hallucinations even penetrate one's memories. It's as if it completely alters your perception. Everything is livable. No one is crazy beyond reason. But if things persist to an unbearable point, I'll be forced to try and repair the pipe myself. This was ridiculous. Why would my dad say such things? The giant roaches have always been here. Ever since I was born. I even shot one on my birthday. Andy, the robot, had worked in my dad's office for years. He was even at my party. The sheer implication he was making. The point we were starting to go crazy. It's just preposterous. I'm sure this is just an inventive story of his. I'm sure everything is fine. I'm sure everything is fine. September 24th, 2018. Today is the day of the big test. I'm really excited. I hope I'll become a laundry cannon operator. Oh, maybe a Pip-Boy programmer. This will be so cool. Well, I better get going. I wouldn't want to be late. Hopefully, I won't run into Butch and the tunnel snakes on my way there. March 11th, 2021. I found a note from my father. Son, the vault is falling into ruin. I need to try my best to repair the Novocaine pipe. For some reason, I'm the only one not affected by the gas. If I don't succeed or something goes wrong, I'm leaving the vault. Son, you mustn't leave. Everyone in the vault has gone homicidal, and I don't know what they'll do to you. I'm not even sure if you can understand this letter, but just know that I love you. Dad is so silly. Bro can't understand. Bro can't understand. Amanda woke me up. She said there was a lockdown. Officers were patrolling the halls, and my father had escaped. She gave me a pistol and ran off. My God. I see what happened. My father wasn't crazy. He was telling the truth. He was trying to save us all. Everything I knew was a figment of my own creation. The ridiculous uniforms everyone wore, the giant cockroaches, the robot doctor, it was all so ridiculous. How could I have been so stupid? I ran out of my room, determined to escape with my father. I cut a path of blood along my way, shooting at what I thought was giant cockroaches and officers. Who knew if they were real or not? I shot the overseer in cold blood and walked away from the sobbing form that was Amanda. The exit to the vault was just within my reach. I could feel my mind on fire. Everything warped before my eyes. I collapsed to the ground. Date unknown. I woke up at the entrance to the vault. I still had my uniform. I still had my Pip-Boy. It was all the same. I looked around. A barren landscape extended for miles. I was safe from the vault, yet everything remained the same. How could this be? It hit me. It was all real. I was sane. My father was the crazy one. I had entered into a new post-apocalyptic world, and it was mine for the taking. I felt unstoppable. I picked up a radio signal on my watch and started running through the scorched field. On the horizon was what appeared to be a shanty town of some sort. I had a good feeling about this. I was on top of the world. I was unstoppable. I was the lone wanderer. Subject 134 is one of our most interesting cases. We have no name for him, but he calls himself the Lone Wanderer. He was found running around the DC area and screaming, shouting, and talking to some random foliage. He was also reported to be seen shooting wildlife with a BB gun. Upon closer interrogation, he insists upon thinking he's in a post-apocalyptic landscape. He insists upon calling me Lucas Sims, the sheriff of some place he calls Megaton. He keeps telling us that his cell is a house I provided him with upon defusing the bomb in the center of the town. The bomb he was referring to is what I believe to be the sculpture in the courtyard. Well, we let him out occasionally. He always has the same reaction. He insists upon being in an apocalyptic world. We have no idea where he came from. He appeared to pop up out of nowhere. All we know for sure is that he shows little hope for improvement.
Get owned, you fucking freak.
Bethesda, you better get to the bottom of this before this becomes a threat that spreads to the other player bases still trying to play Fallout 76. Last night, I chose to go into the game to catch up for some lost time since I haven't played Fallout 76 since 2018. I'm aware of the good, upcoming DLCs and the bad, Fallout First controversy that has happened to it since then. I just wanted to see if I could get some new friends or experiences from it. It took me a while to set it all up and sign in, but once I did, I saw something that worried me. I was over-encumbered with damaged power armor I remembered I wanted to fix, but I never found a workstation or materials to do so. But with that, I can't walk or fast travel to reach nearby players. So I was forced to equip broken T-60 power armor and drop the T-51s, and while I was able to finally walk and run, this did mean once this protection breaks, I'll be very vulnerable. Speaking of vulnerability, I looked into my inventory on my Pip-Boy and saw all I had was a few grenades, 2 weak guns with limited ammo, and a knife. So this means I have to make every shot count. However, I knew a place that could possibly solve this. Around at the top right of the map was a place called the Converted Munitions Factory, where a player could take over the hub and power up a generator to gather loads of ammo of a particular kind they were seeking. The problem wasn't the bottle cap cost, it's that it was an unclaimed workspace, meaning I couldn't simply teleport to it. I had to spawn to the adjacent locations to get anywhere close to it. I decided to pick the nearby Bailey family cabin, but when I did, I immediately realized what I got myself into heading there. Bailey Family Cabin is a place where the Scorched, basically smart-armed zombies, would spawn to attack players. This may seem like a cakewalk, but in my state, I wasn't ready since I'm a veteran shaking off my rust, especially without strong ammo or armor to handle their gunshots. The only thing I could do was run with them right on my trail. I headed in the direction I figured would be the factory, at least so the Scorch would be dissuaded to keep following me. It was a long case, getting shot in the back several times, and I tried to dodge by swerving by the nearby trees. I ran into a bush and finally saw no Scorch behind me, but checking my map, my eyes widened when I realized I went the wrong way. Instead of going west to the factory, I went to the far north. No wonder all I saw far away wasn't the corroded gate, but rather a rock face of the cliffside. My fusion core for my power armor suit wouldn't be able to make it all the way back, so I decided to simply explore the landscape around before I would log off to avoid having to let go of my modular armor as well. It was nighttime, both in-game and in real life, with the light of my television being the only bright thing in my room, but at least the soothing soundtracks in the game perturbed me from feeling too uneasy. I headed to the cliffside and noticed an area around it, clear of any rock blockades, and while this would normally be protected by an invisible barrier and a pop-up saying, "You can't go this way," this time there wasn't. Curious, and having no real way to go back without paying more caps again, I decided to follow the dirt path. Could this lead me to another unpatched secret Bethesda left in the game like the developer room? I just hoped heading this way wouldn't result in my account getting banned. After a long walk, I saw on the map I was almost off the edge of it, like I was going to fall off the side of the world and into the bottomless pit below. I also noticed the soundtrack wasn't playing anymore, so I got my uneasiness heightened by that. I wasn't expecting to find anything here other than glitches. At the end of the path was a blue wall meant to mimic the sky or a far landscape, so I figured it would be another barrier, but instead was intangible. Heading through, I ended up at the Converted Munitions Factory? But how could this be I tried pulling up my Pip-Boy when I switched over to map. All I got was a blank screen. Surrounding the factory was no grass or trees, just blackness, with what looked like a dirt bridge leading to the front door of the facility. I tried to turn around and go back, but now the wall behind me was actually solid. Not even shooting at it did anything. I cursed myself for getting stuck in what seemed to be a glitch, so I decided to head to the factory to see if there were still functions like another workspace. I went down the path, opened the door, and saw it had the same interior as the previous place. There were desks, skeletons, even the ammo generator. I then saw a red workspace that I had to spend some caps to claim this territory, but when I interacted with it, a pop-up appeared stating I couldn't take this place over without it being contested by another player. I soon heard footsteps from the higher floors of the building. This got me on edge, so I pulled up my knife to see if I could sneak up on who's here with me. I creeped up the stairs and crouched down, taking it slow since my power armor is a bit loud. However, when I made it to the second floor, I found no one. I ran around to see if anyone was around hiding, ignoring my super noisy steps, but nothing. Then I saw another door, and I remembered this one could take me to the roof of the factory. Heading up there, I'm back to seeing an empty landscape. There's no light in this world, yet the factory is still bright, like if the moon was shining its glows on it. I couldn't find anyone above, but when I saw a small room above that had what I was looking for, ammo crates, I quickly ran to it and saw it had the bullet kind I was looking for. You could have just said caliber. But when I was done inspecting it, my character suddenly turned its head around to show an NPC? But this is Fallout 76 without Wastelanders yet. Creepier still was that it had no eyes. It had eyelids, but there were holes where the eyeballs would be. It suddenly grabbed my character up like a deathclaw would do, despite the fact its lanky frame, and it said in a distorted voice, "Looking for something?" It soon threw me into a nearby wall, but instead of simply hitting it and landing back on the floor, I somehow phased through it, landing back on the roof of the factory outside of the ammo room. My character got up and the mysterious person phased through the wall as well, with a twisted smirk on its face. I got a better look at him. He had very light brown hair, with a vault jumpsuit on that was covered in blood. While I couldn't see the number on the front, his hairstyle and what he had in his hand made me realize who he was. Worn on his left hand like a glove was the Vault Boy puppet that was just as bloody as he was, and now I could tell who he was by his matching crooked smile. He was the Puppet Man, the crazed survivor of Vault 77. The one after 76. Fitting. But that was besides the point. Despite the fact I knew the TV couldn't hear me, I soon yelled, "What are you?" through my headphones. He then said,
"I am the Puppet Man."
I could tell who he really was now. He's a hacker. How else could he have broken the barriers Bethesda placed and made a copy munitions factory in the world cut off from the main map? He essentially made this whole place as a trap. I didn't have any anti-pirate software on my Xbox One console, so I leaned in to try and simply unplug it myself. But he pointed at me and said,
"Not so fast."
I stopped and asked, "What do you mean?" He answered,
"I know all of your real self, Queen."
I gasped, and that's when my hacker theory felt validated. I really put myself in a sinking shithole by coming here. There's no way out of this now. I sighed and said, "What do you mean?" He smiled even bigger and replied,
I want you to know the truth.
I got a puzzled look. Truth? Truth about what? Since I could tell he could see me in real life, he knew how to elaborate.
I am creating my own world here, free from Bethesda's lies and greed. I want you to spread the word about it. I want to liberate others from their grasp.
I was confused. Why me? I asked. He chuckled and explains,
You have a high friendship base and a clean record. I have to remain here, under Bethesda's radar, to avoid my utopia from being destroyed. As well as me. You, on the other hand, can remain in the light without getting burned.
I decided to agree on it, but wanted to see more of his work in terms of his landscape, since he only managed to make the munitions factory. So he quickly showed off his skills provided by the modified red workspace below. He had this be how the world can be modified to suit everyone's needs, not just his own, so people didn't have to wait years for a patch. With just one move, he swiftly changed the black landscape into a reflected copy of the Fallout 76 map. I say reflected since clearly the factory was now at the bottom left of the world. At the bottom left of the world instead of the top right, and the world's logos and billboards were all inverted. He said he would fix it in time, but he wanted to show the more original stuff he'd done. He teleported several miles away and gestured me with the emote for it. But I said I would want to go the normal way as the stairs. So he seemed cool with it. I went inside and quickly got to work on the workspace he left behind. You see, the workspace was only still in his control, since he was on the building contesting it. But since he chose to leave, now I had its power. If I could make a copy of the map beyond, and beyond, surely it could lift the barrier between these worlds. I got on, quickly lifted the barrier, and ran my way to it. However, I suddenly slowed down as I heard him shout,
"Stop!"
Turns out, my fusion core was now depleted, and he hacked my weapons to be like 500 pounds or something. So I was forced to ditch all of that and run with just the clothes off my character's back. He teleported behind me and tried to chase after me, since most of his hacker tools were gone. But just when I hopped into the original Fallout 76 map, I quickly reintroduced the barrier to stop him dead in his tracks. I then had my sights on the workspace and had it delete itself, meaning now he couldn't come here after me. Relieved, my character and my information was finally saved. I quickly exited the game and turned off my console to finally sleep. Hopefully to get the stress off me. It was a shame that I lost all of my stuff that I got from day one of Fallout 76, but at least I managed to outsmart the Predator without any hacking skills of my own. So today, I activated my account to see if I could still get in the game, and I did. But I also saw I got a message from someone with a scrambled username of Reading it. It simply said,
"You got lucky. Next time, you won't be."
So, to all current and future players of Fallout 76, never, under any circumstances, go to the top right of the map, or anywhere beyond it. You might get caught into the strings of the Puppet Man. Side note, Queen, my real name. I prefer to keep myself secret from you and him. Got it? The sweetest infection. I don't really like this creepypasta. It feels like it's filled with every trope in the book, and the reveal of the villain being an already existing character in the Fallout universe felt a bit ham-fisted. There doesn't really seem to be a solid reason why this hacker guy is the Puppet Man, besides the fact he's already an established scary character in Fallout lore. Writing a creepypasta about the Puppet Man definitely could work, just not in this context. I should mention that there are spoilers for Fallout 4 ahead. You have been warned. This is also my first creepypasta, so please let me know what you think. About a year ago, I got what I consider to be the greatest job ever. I had been hired by Bethesda to help test their games and aid with fixing bugs. These are big games, so sometimes bugs slip through the cracks, though our deadlines prohibit them from being fixed, so sorry. When I got inside and had my orientation, I got what I considered to be some of the best news of my life. I'd get to help test Fallout 4. I was told my assignment was simple at this point. I was to beat the game as fast as I could, in any way I saw fit, while writing down any bugs I saw or any glaring problems that seemed to enter my mind. I started playing but kept my mind open, knowing bugs and glitches would be abundant. I still remember exiting the cryopod to have my character fall through the floor on my first go. But all in all, it amazed me how well they had the game made already. I happily played through, and was thrilled when I joined the Brotherhood of Steel to find that Liberty Prime was back, and I damn near cried when I saw Sean on his deathbed, angry at me. At work, on the other hand, I was genuinely liked, as I had replaced this rather interesting fellow. We will call him Nick, to keep his identity secret. Nick had been fired for threatening a female employee with bodily harm. He was a slacker and a general creep whom no one liked, so they were all too glad to see him go. Within 2 days, I had the game beat. We could take it home for 6 hours of overtime at night, and I turned in my notes. I was then told to log in another 100 hours in-game, and that I was to check each area in the Salem sector of the map, the northeastern corner that is, and give feedback. I was still to see on my list of places to visit was Dunwich Borers. For those who don't know, the guys behind Fallout love H.P. Lovecraft's horror novels, and the company Dunwich Borers LLC, a play on Lovecraft's novel, Dunwich Horrors, was their homage to him. Typically, each place related to the supernatural and occult, and could be good for the genuine spooks. I decided to save the best for last and wait to go to the Borers on my last day of playing, when I could go home, curl up under a blanket, and scare myself with what I'd see. When the night finally came, I kissed my wife goodnight at 10, went to my office, sat in my chair, and journeyed into the Borers. On the outside, things were much like they are now. A ton of raiders, including one in power armor, patrolling the outside, along with some burnt skeletons in a cage at the bottom. I quickly mowed through them and went into the mines below. This is where things got weird. You see, the outside seemed to be empty. No machinery, nothing artificial, not even a light, making it so I had to use my Pip-Boy and night vision scope on my laser rifle to even see where I was going. So I wrote in my notes that it didn't seem to be too believable, and that they maybe should add some equipment inside to make the area seem more realistic. I loved the lighting though. It gave the area an atmosphere of not knowing what was to come. I headed down into the mines, and within a few minutes was startled when the cave started to shake, like an earthquake was happening. Further down, I found a group of raiders. The odd thing was, only one was alive. He wore bloody clothing and was missing an arm. This surprised me because humans couldn't lose limbs without dying. I put it off, figuring that the developers had specifically made this guy as a scare. Keeping my sights on him, I approached to see if he would just attack or if he'd do something. Once I was about 5 feet from him, he let out an ear-piercing screech and ran at me. I clutched my machete, I quickly killed him, and he took the wounded animation, like what you'd get if you shot a key NPC. He looked at me and said, "He will have your head. No one can come into his sight without going mad." He then laughed and died. My eyes went wide, and I carried on. Damn, going full out psychological horror. Props there, I whispered. Tips, Fedora. Tips, Fedora. As I carried further down, I heard a deep voice echo through the caves.
"Come no further, Seth, lest you wish to go mad and feel my revenge."
At first, I was shocked. Did the game know my name? I laughed off the thought, though after a second I reminded myself, you named your character Seth. Codsworth calls you by name, so they probably did the same here, I whispered to myself, surprised to see all the effort they put in. I carried on around the corner and heard, "Fine, you have doomed yourself." A jump scare of a ghoul's face flashed on my screen, making me jump before I was rushed from the front by 5 to 8 new creatures. They were called Hellspawn. They looked like reskinned feral ghouls with red skin and fire seeping through it. This became the only source of light other than my Pip-Boy. I went into vats and made short work of them. They were only a little bit more durable than normal ferals after all. I heard the voice again.
"Congratulations, mortal. You have passed the first test, the test of body. Now you must pass the test of mind, to be graced by my presence."
I carried on like normal, excited to see what the test of mind was. I found soon that lanterns began to guide my path at my feet, making it so I could switch off my Pip-Boy. I didn't know, though, that a personal hell awaited me. The lanterns led me to a narrow crevice, just big enough to walk through. I began to hear music as I entered, slow and eerie as I found my character unable to move faster than a walk. No mortal has ever survived this. The test of mind will end you. My hell began as I suddenly saw an image of a real-life accident scene. A mangled corpse that had been cut in half by a truck. It looked like someone had slipped and took a photo with a camera phone. I nearly vomited at the sight. I'm gonna retch and heave. "What the flip?" I said. "What is wrong with these people? You can't have that in the game." As I went further and further to see what other depraved shit they had in, I was greeted by more images and even a few short videos. A pregnant woman was killed with their child cut out, laying next to her. A man with his head split open. Even a clip of a man blowing his brains out with a pistol. All of these eventually made me vomit into my trash can. Soon enough, I made it to the end and was greeted by a bunch of lanterns, surrounded by a stone eye. "Congrats, you made it to the end, Seth," I heard, the voice filled with spite. "But I have one more image for you, one that shows you your own personal demon." An image flashed. This time, I was greeted with my own face, a day before I started my job, at the supermarket with my wife. "You see, Seth, you ended me. You took my job. You took my every reason for living. I know I could never kill you, but I could kill your spirit. You see, this modded disc was my idea when I was told I had 3 days before I was let go. I knew they would have you come here. And now you get to be the first to know that I'm going to kill myself 3 days after your first day of work. This is on you, Seth. I am dead because of you. And isn't that a bitch?" The game then crashed, and I was left in shock. My mind went racing to Nick, the man I had replaced. How no one liked him, and in his shoes, I'd probably be pissed off as well. I didn't blame him for blaming me. Hell, I even blamed myself at this point. I immediately called my boss and let him know of my experience, and he told me that he was on his way and he would call 911. I went up and woke my wife, telling her of what happened while sobbing. She comforted me until my boss showed up, and we waited in the living room for police to arrive and begin the investigation of the disc. When they arrived, they seized the disc and everything related to it. A detective then sat with me and told me that they checked his house. They found him hanging on a noose in his room, a note clutched in his hands saying, "Revenge is sweet." I'm gonna be honest, it's 100% not the narrator's fault that this happened. This absolute douchebag treated everyone like shit and then acted surprised when he got fired. "Oh, it's your fault, you took my job." No man, you took away your own job, alright? I hope you're enjoying hell, freak. If you were a real person, no joke, no satire, I would find your grave and piss on it every day for the rest of my life. My name is Todd. I'm 15 years old. I am the middle kid of my family. There's my 19-year-old brother, Ralph, that likes to tease me by talking about science that I can hardly understand a word of. Then there's my 8-year-old brother, Rico, who always beats his... Okay. Be mature. Okay. Who always... in every game imaginable. For Minecraft Battlefield, Bad Company, my special talent is programming. For Minecraft Battlefield, Bad Company, my special talent is programming. Who always beats me in every game imaginable. I started learning at around age 9, and now know 3 computer languages, Java, Python, and C++. On May 23rd, 2015, it was Ralph's 20th birthday. I was told to go to GameStop to get him a game. He was not easy to shop for, because his tastes in games are bouncing around all over the place, unlike Rico, who seemed to enjoy any game. On the brighter side, I overheard Ralph talking about his parents before leaving the house. I heard him say that he wanted a game called Fallout 3. I was glad to hear that, because like I said earlier, my brother's taste in video games keeps switching. At GameStop, I looked through the shelves at the store looking for Fallout 3, but I couldn't find it. Eventually, I went to the man selling games and asked if they had any copies of Fallout. It turned out that there was a copy in a shelf that I missed. I went to the shelf and looked for the game. Sure enough, it was there. However, I was slightly disappointed by the condition of the game. The disc was in good condition, but the case was dusty and had a few small cracks. The man at the front desk said that I could have the case replaced for free. He also said that the game was pre-owned, so it was pretty cheap. That night, we celebrated Ralph's birthday. We had cake, and then there was the time for presents. As usual, Ralph loved to annoy us by opening his presents very slowly. Even after opening them, he would look over them for a long time before going on to the next present. When he was about to open my present, I got excited. Even though it wasn't my present, I always had the habit of enjoying seeing other people happy. To make a long story short, Ralph loved the present. He offered me to play the game with him, until I saw the game was only allowed to have one player. Rico came shortly before Ralph started the game and sat down with me on the couch so he could watch him. The game started off with a cutscene talking about nuclear war shortly before 2077 that caused the world to be ruins and ended with the words, "War. War never changes." After that, we went through the first part of the game, the part where your character is just a baby, almost without incident. At one point, Rico, who happens to have sharp senses, claimed that he noticed that around the part where you read the book called I'm Special, the screen briefly became wavy. Wavy? When? I asked. Rico said, when Ralph went to page 3, try it again, you might notice. Ralph said, alright, and flipped to page 3 while I looked curiously. I didn't notice anything. Rico said, that's odd, it's not happening anymore. I said, huh? Starting to lose interest in what Rico claimed he saw. Rico seemed to be losing interest too because all he said back was, okay. The part of the game where you're a baby was complete, and as you probably imagine, easy. The next part was when your character celebrates his 10th birthday. Like before, this part was easy, if somewhat boring. The only particularly fun part is where you get to learn how to shoot a gun and do so on a roach. Fallout's mutant version of a cockroach. Shortly before Ralph's character took out the roach, though, something strange happened. Sections of the screen began to stretch and contract, for 5 seconds or so. Everything then went back to normal. Ralph said, that's odd. Did you see that? I said, yeah, but only a second or so before it went back to normal. What do you think it was? Certainly not placed there on purpose, Rico said. I'll look up. Wait for me. Within a few minutes, Rico came back. He said that glitches like what he saw sometimes happened, but mostly on older handheld devices like the Microvision. It was caused generally when 2 or more pixels next to each other change colors quickly. I said, how old was the Microvision again? Rico said, very old. 1978 or 79 or something around that. Ralph said, perhaps it's an Easter egg. If you start up Minecraft, there's a small chance it will say Minecraft instead of Minecraft. I said, I'm going to go with that guess. Rico said, yeah, me too. However, it was not long before we stopped thinking about an Easter egg. We were now at the part where we take the GOAT test. It's supposed to test out what type of job would be good for your character. Ralph's test results said that he would be a capital wasteland manager. However, just as he was leaving the room he did the test in, we all noticed something. The screen began to bloat and shrink in certain sections again, but there was something else. In the corner of the room, there was some sort of dark shadow. What's that? Ralph decided to take a closer look. Suddenly, a tall man with a brown business suit from the 60s walked out of the shadows of the corner of the room. Ralph walked near the figure, who began mumbling indistinctly to himself. Rico managed to make out a few words of what the man was saying, including
China, attack,
and
collapse.
Ralph said, sounds like whoever he's talking about is bad, and has something to do with China, I added. Rico said, he just said the word oil. Oil? I asked. Ralph said, I think we need a new theory to what's happening in this game. Definitely not a glitch or an Easter egg. I said, Maybe it was hacked. The game was pre-owned, but Ralph and Rico didn't hear me. They were looking at the game screen again. The game had gone pitch black, other than a few spots of dark gray. The dark gray spots turned black, like the rest of the screen. The camera then zoomed out, showing what looked like a city, and judging by the text on the signs, it was Chinese. A few seconds later, the camera cut to orange-red before showing the city again, but in ruins, like in Fallout. There was a giant banner covering one big building with a radiation symbol on it. Ralph said, you were saying what? I said maybe someone who owned the game before us hacked it. It happens in a lot of creepypastas. Ralph said, I don't think someone could do this with this quality. Then again, you're the computer expert. I said, you could do it with this quality, but you would need a lot of computer experience. If there was a computer hacker involved, then he or she definitely had a ton of experience with programs and graphic design. Ralph said, I'd prefer to reject that theory because it's somewhat far-fetched, but then again, it's anyone's guess on what's going on. Rico yawned. I looked at him. Then, at the time on my watch, I said, we can discuss this tomorrow. We should be thinking about going to bed right now. Said no child ever. The next day, I woke up fairly late. It was the weekend, so it didn't matter. So if it was the weekend, why did you insist that you had to go to bed? Whatever. So it didn't matter. The moment I walked out of my room, Ralph came up to me, looking frightened and troubled. What's wrong? I asked. Ralph said, Mom called 911. Rico's... His voice broke. He's what? I asked, feeling troubled myself. Ralph said nervously, he was on Laxapro and the combo made him go insane. He'd be calmer on cocaine. True story. Okay, jokes aside. Feeling troubled myself, Ralph said nervously, in a coma. I said, how do you know? Ralph said, we think he's not waking up. We tried everything we could think of to wake him up. He now sounded somewhat frustrated. A few minutes later, an ambulance arrived to take Rico to the hospital. At the hospital, everything was rather quiet, except for Mom and Dad, who could not stop crying. I felt worried, and so did Ralph. The only movement either of us did for the next half hour was occasionally looking at each other anxiously or somberly. After 30 minutes of this, a doctor came up to my mom and dad, who were sitting at the opposite end of the room from me and Ralph. My mom said, is Rico okay? The doctor said,
he has idiotitis. It means he's so stupid it's killing him.
We're at a loss to explain how he's in a coma. The doctors explained his adrenaline levels are higher than normal. His brainwaves are fast, but shallow. The same you get when you're alert. My mom said through tears, but he's gonna be okay, right? The doctor replied, we did a blood test and found him free of anything biological that may have caused this. About him, it's unpredictable what's gonna happen to him, as we've never seen anything like that. He was interrupted by a sudden loud panic coming from down the hall. Before anyone could react, we heard doors sliding open, and we noticed something else about the scream. It was getting closer and sounded like a kid no older than 8. The doctor was the first to react as he turned around to see Rico running past him in a state of panic. He stopped when he got to us. He shouted, "The man was right!" Me and Ralph looked at Rico, dumbfounded. Rico said, "Can you hear me?" Ralph said sternly. "Of course we can hear you. Calm down." Rico took a few deep breaths. I was about to say something, but I decided to wait until Rico finished being embraced by Mom and Dad. Of course, me and Ralph both hugged him too. After that, while Mom and Dad were talking to the doctor, we decided to discuss what Rico meant when he said, "The man was right." Ralph said, "What man?" Rico said, Where to begin? We waited. That's not how 8-year-olds talk. Anyways, we waited for a moment before Rico said nervously, "I had a dream that I was talking to a man. The same one we saw in Fallout." He was talking about a 2035 war between China and the USA over fossil fuels. He said that there's going to be tons of nuclear bombs launched, causing the ozone layer to go away and destroying both sides of the war alongside most of the world. It's very bad, because I'll only be 29 when it happens. I said, How do you know if this is true? Rico said, I don't think it was a coincidence, since the guy was shown in the game too. Ralph and I began to feel discomforted. And that's where the creepypasta ends. This creepypasta is alright, but it's just another haunted game creepypasta. Easily the most common trope in creepypastas, since Ben Drowned became one of the most well-known creepypastas on the internet. At least the ghost this time was courteous enough to actually leave the cover on the game, instead of just leaving a white piece of tape on the case and writing Fallout 3 on it. It's not really that scary, and the image showing the actual creature is just not it. I mean, this is literally just human Slender Man. Hey there. My name is Jason, and I am 23 years old. I am writing this because, well, let's just say it really makes one think about morality, even in a video game. It was 2 years after the release of Fallout 3. By this point in time, I had modded the game all to hell, and essentially had a lot going on in the game, from super-powered weapons and high-tech armor to new NPCs and buildings. I had been doing this for a while, and decided to make an evil character this time. With the Killable Children mod installed and all the essential NPCs turned off, I could essentially travel anywhere and slaughter anybody I pleased, with little repercussions. Sure, the regulators would make an appearance every once in a while to tell me what a bastard I was, and how I would pay for my crimes. You know, the usual crap you hear spewed from their craws. Like it means a bloody thing. I loved it though. Sometimes I would try to get the drop on the regulators with a sniper rifle or a mini nuke launcher. I was the hunter in this game. Raiders, regulators, children, shopkeepers, you name it. I've hunted and killed it. Sometimes I felt like it was a little boring, so I would handicap myself from time to time to keep it interesting. You know, take on some Deathclaws and Enclave soldiers with only a melee weapon and no armor. Something to that effect. Anyways, it was another Sunday afternoon, and I had nothing else to do. I decided to go to Girder Shade and kill off Ronald and Sierra, and kick their crap for shits and giggles. I loaded up a shotgun, an assault rifle, a sniper rifle, and a combat knife, and wore a Chinese stealth suit. I decided that it would be far more than enough to thoroughly obliterate those two. I used the fast travel to get just outside of Girder Shade. As I approached the boundaries of the small shanty town, I felt like there was an NPC over by some dead trees and rocks off to the distance. I figured it was probably nothing. Even if it was an NPC, it was probably just a trader or a random encounter, or something of the likes. I continued on and entered Girder Shade, killing Ronald and Sierra and stealing some Nuka-Cola stuff I figured I could sell later. I exited Sierra's house and looked over to where I saw the NPC. The NPC was no longer there, so I decided to wander over there anyways to see if they were still nearby or something, as it hadn't taken me very long to turn Girder Shade into a Nuka-Cola ghost town. I saw nobody there, and I was about to turn around when suddenly a notification popped up on my screen. It said,
As you turn away, you notice a small note on the ground. The note says 3 simple words. Come to Dunwich.
I closed the prompt, and I sat in my chair and thought what that could have possibly been about. I figured it must have been an old quest mod I had installed previously and figured it might be fun. Essentially, more people or ghouls to hunt down. I decided to head over to the Dunwich Building and see what this was all about. As I approached, I decided to play it a little bit safe, as if this was a quest mod. I didn't know what enemies would be lurking around. I took out the sniper rifle and studied the surroundings. It all looked pretty normal. No NPCs wandering around. No enemies of any sort. I put my sniper rifle away and decided to use my shotgun, as it was close quarters in there and it made the most sense. I opened the door and entered the building. It all looked pretty normal at this point. No new ambience, music, NPCs. It was all just the same. I started to wander through the building, prepping myself for an encounter with the enemies in here, mostly feral ghouls. I decided to crouch into stealth mode, and wander around to hunt them. As I got further and further into the building, I noticed something. There were no enemies at all. Nothing. I exited stealth mode and looked through all the rooms, one by one. There was nothing. I mean, all the stuff was still there, but no ghouls. I began to wonder if this was part of the mod, that I would run into a new kind of enemy or there would be tons of enemies deeper into the building. I started to go deeper down when suddenly I heard a very faint whispering coming down the hall and in a room with a closed door. This is probably part of the mod. I figured it could be a horror mod or something. I enjoyed the thought of it, so I slowly walked down the hall, readying my shotgun. I got outside the door, and I opened it to find nothing. There was nothing here. I sat hunched in my chair, scratching my head, wondering what the hell that was about. As I started to walk into the room, I quickly stopped and looked down. There on the ground was a barely visible tripwire. The tripwire was different from the others normally found in the game. It looked like a fishing wire, damn near transparent. If I hadn't been alert and paying attention, I would have tripped the wire. I knelt down and safely disabled the wire. I walked around the corner to see what it would have set off, and my heart stopped. It was a nuke, like the one in Megaton. I walked up to it, and a prompt came up saying,
There was a note attached to the bomb. It said, "Well, you survived the first step. Kudos. Can you keep it going, I wonder?"
I stared at the prompt for a while. What in the bloody hell kind of mod was this? What in the bloody hell kind of mod was this? What in the bloody hell kind of mod was this? Oi, mate, what in the bloody hell kind of mod was this?
What in the bloody hell kind of mod was this?
It was unique, I give it that. But I hadn't seen a mod use a nuke like this before. I simply shrugged it off as a really overzealous modder and continued on my way. As I got down to the depths of the Dunwich Building, I found something that was a little comforting. It was one of the notes from the scientist turned ghoul. I picked it up and listened to it, as it was familiar enough to keep me going. It played out as normal, until I noticed that even after the message was supposed to have ended, there was still 15 seconds left on the tape. I wondered how the hell someone could have modded this, when suddenly the tape played the same goddamn whispering I had heard previously from the room upstairs. It kept going for 8 seconds, and then stopped. When there was only 3 seconds left, the tape suddenly let out a loud, piercing scream, like someone being attacked. I damn near fell out of my chair. After the tape stopped, I got pissed. Really? A fucking jump scare? That's the best they could come up with? Freaking amateurs. I was just about to leave the room when suddenly, outside the door and down the hall, I heard footsteps. They were slow, but loud, and they were slowly getting closer. I aimed my shotgun at the door, waiting for whoever or whatever was outside to open the door and attack. I figured this was the boss of the quest or some shit, but nothing happened. There was no red blip on the compass. Nothing opened the door. There was just a shadow outside of the door, standing there, doing and saying nothing. I stared at the door for what felt like hours, even though it was mere seconds. What the hell was this? Who could code the AI in a mod this good? I decided that I would try something else. I still had some mines I had picked up and decided to use them. I planted them in front of the door. I opened stealth mode to open the door and find nothing. There was nothing there at all. I started to get furious. What the hell kind of troll quest mod was this? Nothing had happened. All that had happened so far was someone fucking with me, and I was getting pretty damn sick of it. At this point, I decided to leave. I went back through the building and was just about to reach the exit when suddenly I heard the footsteps. Except this time, they weren't slow, they were fast. Something was bolting towards me at the rate that I didn't think NPCs could move in this game. I heard the mines in the one room go off, and the footsteps didn't stop. They just got louder as whatever it was got closer. I decided to bail and go outside with my sniper rifle instead, and catch the prick by surprise. I ran outside the building and stood there watching on the hill, waiting for this asshole to come out so he could get shot in the face. Repeatedly, I watched and nothing. I sighed. This was stupid, and decided to fast travel back to Tenpenny Tower. I went inside. There was nobody there. There were no guards, no people, nothing. I was confused. Did my game severely glitch out or something? Why was all this crap happening? I decided I would let my character go upstairs. I would save it and figure it out later. I went up to my suite and entered the room. It was dark. Very dark. I turned on my Pip-Boy light and there was a trail of dark liquid on the ground, leading to the modded parlor. I took out my shotgun and decided to see what the hell that was and why my game was so screwed up. I walked into the parlor. My mouth fell wide open. On the wall, scrawled in blood, was one word: Hunter. I saw the heads of every single fucking NPC I had ever killed. Every man, every woman, every child, stacked on the pool table. I looked around, and there were the corpses of animals sprawled across the floor. I started to back out of the room when suddenly I heard a slight creak behind me. I spun around and saw an NPC. It was me, the actual me, except he was paler, with darker hair, and cold, soulless eyes. He stabbed my character in the gut with a knife, immediately taking my health from full to 0. My character gurgled and thrashed, collapsing in a heap. He looked dead into my character's eyes, as if he was looking at me and said, "How does it feel to be the hunted? To know how they felt?" Right before you ended their existences like they were nothing. Well, they are nothing. They're NPCs in a video game, you fucking dolt. How about you take a fucking chill pill and smoke some crack? This is the only warning. Next time, I come to hunt you. The game suddenly crashed back to desktop. I stared in silence at my computer monitor before walking over to my fridge, grabbing the whiskey, and jerking myself stupid until I passed out. From that day forward, I have never played a game with an evil character again. I always do the good and right thing. I always am helpful and fight against those who are themselves evil. And every time I think about crossing that line and being evil, even for a second, I swear, outside my door in the hallway, I can hear footsteps walking just outside, waiting for me to slip up